I built my wealth without their help, and now I'm the one in control of everything. My dad said my name like it was a punchline, smiling into the microphone with that practiced proud father voice he only uses when there's an audience. The backyard was packed, fold-out chairs, a rented marquee, paper lanterns swinging in the warm air, the smell of charcoal and marinated chicken clinging to everyone's clothes. My mom stood beside him in a sparkly top she'd bought specifically for tonight, eyes bright, cheeks already flushed from wine and adrenaline. My brother Mason was front and center, grinning with his arm around his girlfriend, Danny, like they were the reason the sun rose. Dad lifted his glass toward me and announced, "And the best part? Our girl, our successful girl, has decided to do the right thing. She's handing the house over to Mason as a gift, because family takes care of family." People actually cheered. I felt the sound hit my ribs like a shove. My palms went damp around my plastic cup. Mum's hand pressed into the small of my back, gentle, controlling, nudging me forward. "Go on," she whispered, smiling so hard her jaw looked like it hurt. "Say yes. Don't embarrass us." Dad angled the mic toward me, waiting for my obedient little speech, and I stared at the black foam head of it like it was a muzzle. I didn't move. I could hear someone behind me whisper, "I knew she'd come through," and another voice, brighter, say, "Must be nice to have a sister like that." My throat tightened so hard it felt like swallowing glass. And then, before my brain could talk me out of it, I said clearly, "I'm not handing anything over." And I never agreed to. The cheer died, so fast it was almost funny. Not in a ha-ha way, more like watching a balloon pop in slow motion. Dad's smile froze on his face and then cracked at the edges. Mum's nails dug in, a warning. Mason's grin slipped and his eyes flashed. Quick, sharp, the look he gets when he's about to turn on the charm or the cruelty, depending on what will work faster. Danny went stiff beside him, her hand tightening on his arm like she was trying to anchor herself. Dad gave a loud laugh into the mic. The kind people do when they want to pretend someone else is the one being weird. "Oh, she's joking," he said, eyes not laughing at all. "She's always got that dry sense of humor." He pushed the mic closer, like volume could force my mouth to behave. "Tell him, love," he murmured, barely moving his lips. "Tell them you're proud to do it." I took one slow step forward, not onto the little makeshift stage area, just close enough that people at the front tables could see my face properly. I could smell my dad's cologne and the beer on his breath. My heart was thumping so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. "I'm not joking," I said, and my voice was steadier than I felt. "And please stop announcing things about my money and my property like they're yours." The word property made my mum flinch like it was rude, like the truth had bad manners. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. A kid's balloon squeaked. Dad's jaw tightened. Mason started to speak, fast, loud, already building a story, but I lifted my hand, not dramatic, just enough. "Give me 1 minute," I said, and I didn't look at my brother because if I looked at him, I might slip back into the old groove of apologizing. It was a Tuesday night, 3 weeks ago, when I realized they weren't just hoping to use me anymore. They were already doing it like it was a done deal. I was in my apartment, hair in a damp knot, laptop open, still in my work clothes because I'd been on back-to-back calls all day. I'd finally sat down with a bowl of rice and whatever I could scrape together from the fridge when my cousin Leah texted me, "Don't freak out, but did you know about this?" Then she sent a screenshot from a family group chat I wasn't in. The name of the chat was something painfully cheerful like New Beginnings House with Garden Sparkles, and the messages were worse than the title. "My mum, we're announcing it at the engagement barbecue. She can't say no in front of everyone. My dad, it's time. She owes us. She wouldn't be where she is without us. Mason, finally. I'm sick of being treated like a loser while she hoards everything." There were heart emojis, clapping emojis, people congratulating my parents on raising such a generous daughter. And tucked in the middle, like it was just a minor detail, was my dad saying, "Make sure she brings the paperwork. The title transfer. I'll tell her to dress nice for photos." I remember staring at the screenshot, so long my food went cold. My shoulders went tight, like I was bracing for a hit. It wasn't even the house part at first, though yeah, that too. It was the certainty in their words, the way my life had been rewritten into a resource they could allocate. Like I was a family savings account they'd finally decided to cash out. Here's the part that's hard to explain without sounding like I'm bragging. I am the successful one now, but for most of my life, I was the one they treated like background noise. Mason got the attention. Mason got the forgiveness. Mason got the he's just finding himself grace period that somehow stretched into adulthood. I was the one who got told, "You're so independent," whenever I needed anything, like independence was a compliment instead of a coping mechanism. I moved out at 18 with a duffel bag and a scholarship and the kind of stubbornness you only get for being underestimated for years. I worked 2 jobs through uni. I learned how to stretch groceries. I learned how to negotiate pay without shaking. I learned how to be calm when things went wrong because panicking never helped when you don't have a safety net. My parents didn't help financially. They didn't call to check on me unless they needed something. When I landed my first decent role, nothing glamorous, just stable, my dad said, "Don't get a big head." When I got promoted, my mom said, "That's nice," and then immediately asked if I could send Mason a little help because he was having a rough patch. I built what I have without them, and not in a grind-set influencer way, in a slow, boring, painful way. I saved. I invested. I started a small online business on the side during lockdown that somehow took off. I didn't suddenly become a millionaire overnight, but I did become the person who doesn't have to check her account before filling up the car, and to my family that might as well be royalty. They started calling more after that. It began with "Can you just things?" Small emergencies that were never actually emergencies. Bills, repairs, a loan until payday. Mason's rego, Mason's rent, Mason's business idea. Every time, it was framed like it would be the last time. Every time, it wasn't. Then the house happened. 2 years ago, my parents nearly lost it. They didn't call me and say, "We're about to be foreclosed on." Of course not. They called me and said, "We're just a bit stressed, sweetheart, and your father's blood pressure, and you know how the interest rates are." I didn't find out the real situation until a letter showed up at my apartment, because my mom had used my mailing address for paperwork months earlier. It was from the bank. Notice of default. Big black letters. I sat on my couch with that letter and felt my stomach drop through the floor because suddenly I could see the dominoes. If they lost the house, my mom would spiral, my dad would rage, Mason would move back home, and somehow I'd end up funding the fallout anyway. So I stepped in, not because I wanted control, because I wanted to stop the bleeding. I told them I could help, but only if it was structured, only if it was in writing, only if it didn't become an endless hole. My dad fought me for days, called me disrespectful, called me arrogant, told me I was acting like a banker. My mom cried and said, "We never should have told you," like I was the problem for knowing. Mason didn't say much then. He just looked at me with this resentful, hungry stare like he could already taste what he thought I owed him. In the end, the only way the bank would work with us, because my parents' financial situation was a mess and they'd lied about parts of it, was if I refinanced and took over. So I did. I bought the house. Not emotionally, not symbolically, legally, practically on paper. The title went into a trust with my name. The mortgage came out of my account. The bank statement came to me. I sat at a table with a lender and watched my parents sign the documents while my dad refused to look at me. They agreed to it because they had no other choice. They also agreed very clearly that it was a rescue, not a gift, that they contribute monthly, that this wasn't Mason's inheritance, that if they missed payments, we'd revisit living arrangements. Everyone nodded. Everyone said yes. Everyone smiled that tight, scared smile people do when they're signing something they don't want to understand. And then, over time, my family did what they always do. They rewrote the story. It became Tessa helped us out. Then Tessa bought the house because she wanted to. Then it's basically still our house. Then it'll be Mason's one day anyway. And then, apparently, it became Tessa is gifting it to Mason at the engagement barbecue. Hence Tuesday night's screenshot. Hence me sitting on my couch, staring at my own life being volunteered like a party favor. I didn't call them immediately. If I called, I would have been pulled into the same loop. Tears, yelling, guilt, gaslighting, me feeling like a monster for not wanting to be used. So instead, I prepared. I pulled every document. Title: Mortgage Statements. The bank's direct debit confirmations. The email where my dad explicitly said, "We understand it's in your name temporarily." I printed it all. I put it in a folder. I also drafted a simple rental agreement. Nothing dramatic, nothing punitive. Just a reality check. If they wanted to live there, they'd contribute. If they wanted to pretend it was theirs, they could buy me out. If they wanted to hand it to Mason, Mason could purchase it like any adult who wants a house. And then, because I'm not heartless, I called Danny. She's not my best friend or anything, but she's always been normal. Like she has a moral compass that isn't calibrated to my family's chaos. I asked if she had a minute. She sounded excited, bubbly, the way someone does when their engagement still feels like a movie. I said, "I need to tell you something so you're not blindsided at the barbecue." I told her, calmly, that the house wasn't my parents' to give, and I wasn't gifting it. There was a long silence, and then she whispered, "Mason told me you offered." I laughed once, without humor. "You didn't even ask me." Danny exhaled like she'd been punched in the stomach. "Oh my God," she said, and her voice went small. "Is this how they are?" "Yes," I said, "and I'm sorry you're stepping into it." She didn't defend him. She didn't attack him either. She just said, quietly, "Thank you for telling me." And then, after a beat, "I'm really sorry." So that was the setup walking into tonight. Me, with a folder in my bag and a stomach full of dread, driving to my parents' place for Mason's engagement barbecue, knowing they'd try to trap me in public. I almost didn't go. I sat in my car down the street for a full 5 minutes, watching people laugh in the yard, listening to faint music, trying to decide if I wanted to blow up my relationship with my family forever. Then I remembered Nana, my grandmother, who lives with them now because she can't manage stairs anymore. I remembered her hands, how she squeezes my fingers when she's worried. I remembered how she once told me, "Don't let them make you small, love." I got out of the car. Back in the present, with my dad still holding the mic like he could force me to play along, I took a breath I could feel in my back teeth and said, "I'm going to make this simple." My voice carried because the yard had gone quiet in that awful way where everyone is pretending not to listen while listening with their whole bodies. 2 years ago, the house was about to be lost. I stepped in. I bought it. The mortgage is in my name. The title is in my trust. I pay it. That's not opinion. That's paperwork. My dad's face went purple. "You're making it sound." "I'm making it sound accurate." I cut in, and I surprised myself with how calm I was. My hand was shaking inside, but my voice didn't wobble. "You don't get to announce that you're handing it over to Mason because you don't own it." Mom hissed, "Tessa, stop. Nana's here." Nana was there, sitting near the side with a shawl over her shoulders, watching me with that steady old gaze that makes you feel seen and guilty at the same time. I looked at her and softened my voice a fraction. "Nana, I'm not trying to upset anyone," I said. "I just can't let them lie about me." Mason stepped forward fast, smile sharp, trying to take over the vibe. "Okay, wow," he said, laughing like I was being dramatic. "So you're really going to do this? In front of everyone? At my engagement?" "You did it," I said. "You planned it. You just thought I'd be too ashamed to correct you." His jaw worked. "You're jealous," he spat. It was so childish it almost made me sad. "You've always needed control. You think money makes you better." That one hit, because it's the story he's told himself to survive being the screw-up next to my stability. That I'm cold, controlling, selfish. If he admits I'm just tired, then he has to admit what he's done. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. People shifted. Someone near the back actually whispered, "Oh," like we were watching a show. I hated that. I hated being entertainment. But I also knew if I didn't ground this in reality, they'd turn it into Tessa's being emotional again. I opened the folder, pulled out one page, and held it up, not waving it, just showing I had it. "This is the title," I said. "This is the mortgage statement. This is the bank direct debit." I don't want to read it out loud, because I'm not trying to humiliate you. But I will not be publicly pressured into giving away an asset you don't have the right to offer. Dad leaned into the mic, voice booming, angry, trying to reassert dominance. "After everything we did for you." "What?" I asked, and my voice stayed quiet, which somehow made it worse. You want to list it? Because I can list the nights I went without dinner at uni, the tuition I paid, the rent I paid, the times you told me to stop acting too smart, the times you laughed when I said I wanted more. The only thing you gave me that helped build my wealth was the certainty that if I didn't save myself, nobody else would. Mom made a wounded sound. That's not fair. I turned to her, and I could feel my eyes burning. Fair, I said. You were happy to let me refinance your home. You were happy to let me carry the mortgage. But the second I have something you can use to make Mason look like a man, you decide it's not mine. Danny spoke then, quietly but clearly. Mason, she said. Did you tell them she was gifting it? Mason's head snapped toward her. Babe, answer, Danny said, and her voice wasn't loud, but it had steel in it. Mason opened his mouth, shut it, glanced at Mom and Dad like they were his backup singers. They said, Danny's eyes flicked to my parents. Did you tell people that? She asked them. Mom lifted her chin, defensive. We just assumed Tessa's done so well. She doesn't even need. Oh my God, Danny breathed, and she looked genuinely horrified now, like someone had just peeled the wallpaper off her future and revealed mold. You didn't ask her? Dad barked. This is none of your business. Is if I'm marrying into it, Danny said, and the yard went so quiet I could hear the sizzle of meat on the grill. Mason's face went red, then pale. You're overreacting, he snapped at her, and that, more than anything, made Danny's expression change. Like a switch. Like she'd seen this before in another form. I didn't push. I didn't pile on. I just said, steady, here's what's happening instead. I pulled out another page. If Mom and Dad want to stay in the house, they keep contributing monthly like they agreed. If they can't, we talk about downsizing. If Mason wants the house, he can buy it from me at market value, with a bank like everyone else. If he needs help with a deposit, I'll match what he saves, dollar for dollar. Up to a limit, because I'm not here to ruin his life. I'm here to stop being used. Mason laughed, bitter. So you'll help if you get to control it. I'll help if you act like an adult, I said. That's not control. That's boundaries. Dad slammed the mic down onto the table so it thunked, and a couple people flinched. He leaned in close to me, voice low, vicious. You think you're the boss because you have money, he hissed. You think you can humiliate us in our own yard. I looked at him, and my hand stopped shaking for a second, like my body had finally decided it was done being scared of him. I'm not humiliating you, I said quietly. You humiliated yourselves when you tried to use me as a prop. Mom's eyes were wet now, but her face was hard. You're tearing the family apart, she whispered. No, I said. I'm refusing to be the glue you keep eating. That was the moment something shifted. Not like a movie where everyone claps, but like real life where people start seeing you differently in small, irreversible ways. My aunt, who's always been loyal to Mom, stared at her plate like she suddenly couldn't stomach it. My cousin Leah met my eyes and gave me the tiniest nod. Nana reached out and patted the arm of her chair twice, like she was steadying herself, but she didn't look angry. She looked relieved. Like someone had finally said out loud what she'd known about my family for years. Mason tried one last tactic. He made his voice big and wounded. So if that's it, he said loudly, turning to the crowd. My sister's rich now, and she's going to let our parents lose their home? She's going to punish us because she's bitter? I didn't answer him immediately. I took a breath, looked around at the faces watching, and then I did something I never do. I let the truth be plain. I already saved the home, I said. I did it 2 years ago, quietly, without posting about it, without a speech. I've been carrying that mortgage while you all told each other I'm selfish. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm stopping the punishment from being me. Mason's mouth opened, then shut. His eyes flicked, panicked, like he hadn't expected the timeline to be that clear. Danny's voice came out shaky. You've been paying their mortgage? She asked me. Yes, I said, and I hated how small it sounded, like admitting something embarrassing. Danny looked at Mason like she didn't recognize him. And you let them announce she was giving you the house, she said slowly. At our engagement. Mason snapped. It was supposed to be a surprise. For who? Danny asked. For her. That question hung in the air like smoke. I didn't stay for the fallout. I didn't want to be there while my brother tried to spin it, while my parents tried to rewrite the story again. I'd said what I needed to say. I laid out the options. My hands were starting to tremble again now that the adrenaline was wearing off, and my stomach felt hollow. I walked over to Nana first. I crouched beside her chair, so we were eye level. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't want your night to be like this." Nana's fingers, papery and warm, touched my cheek. "I've had 83 birthdays," she said softly. "I don't need balloons. I need you to stop letting them chew you up." Her eyes flicked toward Mom and Dad, then back to me. "You did right." That was the only permission I needed. I stood, grabbed my bag, and walked out through the side gate. Behind me, voices rose, Dad's angry bark, Mom's crying, Mason's defensive shouting, Danny's sharp, shaking questions. The fairy lights kept glowing like nothing was wrong. The music kept playing. The normal world kept spinning while my family's little ecosystem started to crack. In my car, my whole body shook. Not dramatic sobbing, just that deep tremor you get when you've been holding yourself together with muscle tension for years and then suddenly let go. I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel and stared at the streetlight reflecting on my windshield, breathing until my heartbeat slowed down enough that I could think. My phone buzzed before I even started the engine. "Mom, how could you do this to us in front of everyone?" "Dad, don't bother coming back." "Mason, you're disgusting. You love being in control." Then, a few minutes later, a message from Danny. I had no idea. "I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" That one made my throat tighten again, because it was the first message that treated me like a person instead of an obstacle. The next week was messy. Not in a satisfying "I won" way, just messy like real consequences are. Mom didn't talk to me for days, then called and cried and tried to bargain. Dad sent me long texts about loyalty and respect and forgetting where you come from. Mason posted a vague Facebook status about people showing their true colors when money's involved, which made my cousin Leah comment, "You mean when stealing is involved?" And I nearly choked laughing when I saw it, because Leah has never had chill in her life. Danny didn't come to Sunday lunch. Then she didn't come to Sunday after that. Then Mason showed up alone, eyes puffy, acting like he was the victim of a storm he didn't see coming. Mom fussed over him and shot me looks like I'd personally smashed his engagement ring with a hammer. He cornered me in the hallway near the laundry, voice low and furious. "You ruined my life," he hissed. I looked at him, my little brother with his adult anger, his entitlement dressed up as pain, and I felt something that wasn't rage exactly. It was grief. For the relationship we could have had if he'd ever seen me as a sister instead of a resource. "No," I said. "I ruined your plan." He leaned closer, eyes bright. "You always hated me." I shook my head slow. "I didn't hate you," I said. "I hated being your backup plan." He scoffed. "So what? You're going to evict Mom and Dad now? Show everyone how powerful you are?" That's the line he wanted. The villain line. The proof that I was cold. So I didn't give it to him. "No," I said. "Mom and Dad can stay as long as they stick to the agreement. They pay what they agreed. They don't treat my assets like party prizes. And they stop volunteering me." Mason's face twisted. "You can't control everything," he spat. And here's the thing. He was right. I can't control everything. I can't control their mouths. I can't control their feelings. I can't control whether my dad ever admits he was wrong or whether my mom ever stops confusing guilt with love. I can't control whether Mason grows up, but I can control the only thing I was never allowed to control in that family: what I give, what I tolerate, and what I walk away from. A week after the barbecue, I emailed my parents a simple document: the original agreement we signed, the payment schedule, and a note that said, if payments are missed, we will discuss downsizing within 60 days. No threats, no drama, just reality. Mom called me screaming. Dad called me ungrateful. Mason called me a dictator. I let them feel it. I didn't soothe it. I didn't bargain it away. And you know what happened? Something boring and miraculous. They started paying on time. Not because they suddenly respected me. Because the old method, public shame, emotional blackmail, didn't work anymore. They realized I wasn't going to fold just because they raised their voices. They realized I wasn't scared of being the bad guy in a story they kept rewriting. Danny eventually called me. We met for coffee, just us, in a quiet cafe where nobody knew our names. She looked tired. I shadowed. She wrapped her hands around her cup like she needed the heat. I didn't know, she said again, and her voice broke on the second word. I'm still processing. I believe you, I said because I did. She stared at the table for a long moment. He told me you were intense, she admitted. Like you wanted control and you held money over everyone. I snorted despite myself. I'm intense because I don't want to be robbed, I said, and she gave a sad little laugh. Then she said something that stuck with me. I don't think Mason understands the difference between support and sacrifice. He thinks love means someone else bleeds. I didn't answer because it hit too close to home. I just looked out the window at people walking by with ordinary lives and felt that old ache. Wanted my family to be ordinary like that. Danny and Mason didn't break up that day, but they did pause wedding planning. Her words, not his. He told everyone she was confused. She told me, quietly, I'm not confused. I'm just not marrying into a family where lying is tradition. I don't know how that ends. I really don't. Part of me hopes Mason grows up, apologizes, becomes someone who can love without taking. Part of me knows I can't build my life around that hope. What I do know is that the night they tried to use me publicly, I didn't do what I always do. I didn't smile and swallow it and deal with the resentment later in private. I corrected the story in the moment. I put the truth on the table. I gave them options instead of surrender. And yeah, now I'm the one in control. Not because I'm drunk on power, because I finally stopped handing mine away to people who kept proving they'd spend it like it was infinite. I built my wealth without their help. I built my peace without their permission. And if they want access to either of those things now, it's going to be on terms that don't require me to disappear for their comfort.